Well, it's 3:05. Why don't we go ahead and get started? So appreciate everyone joining the call. Looking forward to sharing some additional detail with you guys on Cisco SASE. A few housekeeping items to walk through. I guess first and foremost, by way of introductions, my name is Kirk Eugen. I'm VP of Sales and Marketing here at A&M. Thank you guys for joining. So back to the housekeeping here. A few quick notes. All of you are muted out there, so if you have a question, please raise your hand or feel free to pop it into the chat section. I'll be monitoring that throughout the session. If you guys have things you want to share or ask along the way, I'll be looking into that and can chime in with the speakers while we're going. This session will be recorded. We do have a YouTube channel we're starting to utilize, so this will be recorded and available there within a couple of days. So we'll make sure the link is available to you, and as part of that link, we will also include a raffle. So we'd love your feedback. We'd love to hear, is this useful? Is the time good? Do you like the snack magic? What stuff do you like in your snack magic? But we'll send that raffle to you, that survey to you rather. And if you fill out the survey, we'll raffle off a $150 Amazon gift card for filling it out. So would appreciate your feedback there. And then lastly, all of you for registering and attending should have received this Snack Magic gift code. You can go in, fill out whatever you want, and order it. If you haven't received that, let me know via chat or via email, and we're happy to get that sorted for you. But thank you guys for joining. I'm going to pass it off to the brains of the operation, Augie, Kevin, and David.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, first off, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We know that there's a lot of information out there on Cisco SASE, and so what we wanted to do for you today was try and boil down a lot of that information for you. This is going to be the first of two sessions that we're holding on Cisco SASE. I believe we're still finalizing the date for that second event, so I think we're shooting sometime in mid or late January, but please keep an eye out for that event. In that second session, we're going to plan some really cool demos for you, so we hope that you could join us. Here's a quick agenda. We're going to start off by taking a look at some of the issues that we're facing today and how SASE is going to help us move forward. After that, we're going to be reviewing some of the most common SASE use cases. This is going to show you some just real-world examples of how SASE can be applied throughout your infrastructure. And then we're going to wrap up our presentation by reviewing how you could get started on your own SASE journey and how A&M can help you. As Kurt mentioned, there's going to be a Q&A session at the end, so please, if you have any questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat or send them directly to Kurt. He's going to be watching and collecting them for us. If for some reason we can't get to your question today, or maybe we might need some more information to answer, we'll definitely reach out to you afterwards to get an answer for you. Here we have our A&M presenters. We have a few solutions architects from different areas of the A&M geo. On the right here, we have Kevin Snoddy out of Denver, Colorado. He's going to be giving us an overview of the SASE remote worker use cases. And then after that, we have out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, David Vigil. He's going to be presenting on our SASE secure edge use cases. And then that's me at the end there. My name is Augie Lozano. I'm a solutions architect based out of El Paso, Texas. And I'll start off the session by providing a SASE executive overview. So let's go ahead and get started here. To begin, I wanted to first get into some of the issues that are really driving the need for a SASE architecture. Our network perimeter, as we used to know it, has really evolved beyond a set of security devices that separate our internal infrastructure. What we used to think of the network has really shifted, has become to more of what we call a distributed or a hybrid workforce, right? So, over the last couple of years, this has really accelerated because of the pandemic, and as a result, we now have people that are literally working from anywhere, right? We have users scattered at home. Some are going back and forth to the office. They could be connecting via some sort of public Wi-Fi on the go, right? And so, on top of that, they could be connecting with a mix of corporate devices and even their own personal devices, which makes it a lot harder to try and figure out who's actually connecting to our network. The other major shift is that most organizations have already started to embrace some sort of cloud-delivered application or cloud infrastructure. And with all these additional services, it makes our entire end-to-end network a whole lot more complicated. So, and from a user's perspective, on top of all of that added complexity, they still need it to function as if it were a seamless network, but that's really not the case anymore. And since the majority of our networks are based off of that traditional network architecture, providing a seamless network experience for them becomes a whole lot more difficult. A recent Gartner survey showed that 82% of companies still plan to allow their employees to work remotely in the future. And so, with this shift, the data center is no longer the center of the infrastructure. The infrastructure now almost surrounds the user, and so we're almost having to start think of them as an entire branch of one. In that same survey, it showed that 93% of enterprises have already embraced a multi-cloud strategy. And what they actually earned was that the average company now connects to over 20 different cloud services. And so, with our users dispersed and our network perimeter evolving to include all of these different cloud services, what used to be a fairly simple task of connecting our users to the applications now has a lot more challenges. And since we expect a large majority of our app usage to become mainly SaaS-based in the future, our IT departments are now having to factor in all of the different variables and which these can actually change on a day-to-day basis. So historically, this is how things used to work for our networking and security teams. On the network side, typically we had all of our applications hosted internally, right? We had our users had to be somehow connected to the network, the corporate network, in order to access them. Branch offices would tunnel all of their traffic back to the corporate data center, and then maybe some users would connect via VPN, and then 80% of that traffic would just stay internal to the network. So we also routed all of our internet traffic through our headquarters, right? And that's so that we could push that traffic through some sort of security stack as it traversed in and out the network. This allowed your security teams to make sure that all of our incoming and outgoing traffic was sanitized and filtered, right? So, really what we did is we designed our entire network infrastructure around these traffic flows. But over the last 5 years or so, there's been a real dramatic increase in our internet traffic, mainly because of the adoption of these different cloud-based services. And so, what we see now is that most enterprises run the majority of their workloads in the cloud, which means that a large percentage of our total traffic is actually internet-based and no longer even internal. So now backhauling all of that traffic back to our HQ doesn't even really make sense in a lot of cases, right? And this is really one of the reasons why more and more companies are moving to direct internet access for connectivity. But when we do that, we bring on a whole other set of issues, right? So on one hand, we have our users and our branch offices with direct internet access. They're connecting directly to our SaaS apps, but now they've become a whole lot more vulnerable because that user is now bypassing that security stack at our data center. And on the other hand, now we have our centralized approach where we pipe all of our internet traffic back to the headquarters, so that we can enforce that centralized security policy. But with that traditional approach, we start running into application performance issues, which makes it really frustrating for users and harder for these organizations to adopt them. So with these traffic flows, our network and security teams often struggle to, first of all, even get their users connected to the applications and data that they need. When they do, it often even leads to a poor user experience, right? And so because of the complexity of our dispersed users, we now have gaps in our security protection. It makes it a lot harder for our network and security teams to protect the organization against newly evolving threats. In some cases, we might have stood up security throughout different points of the infrastructure. But then, the question becomes is how are we managing all of these separate policies? And, if we are managing them together, are these policies even being applied consistently throughout the rest of our organization? And so, on top of that, we have so many users connecting from so many different devices that, and even different places that it can become difficult to determine what the true identity of that user is. And so if we do run into connectivity issues, most organizations lack that end-to-end visibility of their entire now infrastructure, that it could be difficult or even impossible to pinpoint and fix issues. So you could be having issues with the ISP, a cloud provider, the application itself. It could be caused by an internal device or some sort of device out there on the internet that we have no control over. And so, with all of these variables, how do you isolate and resolve performance issues? And who do you even escalate them to is kind of the major question, right? So, because of all this, we really need to take a look at how we approach networking and security. And so this is where Sassy comes into play. The first thing that we need to know about Sassy is that it's not a product within itself. It's actually a whole architecture, right? And so the term SASE was coined by Gartner back in 2019. And really what it does is it helps organizations simplify and scale their connectivity for all of their users, so that now that we have this distributed workforce, it's a lot easier to manage, right? The SASE architecture takes that traditional networking and security function and it moves it up to the cloud so that it could be delivered via subscription service. And what's really driving this whole need for this SASE architecture is the fact that our entire world is becoming cloud centric, right? And so what SASE does is it combines our networking and security functions together so that we can provide that secure connectivity to all of our applications and data that our users need. But it still allows us to enforce a consistent policy across all of our users, no matter where they're working from. And so when we take a look at Cisco SASE solution, they take more of an integrated approach. They break it down into what they call the 3Cs. And really this whole 3Cs approach is just meant to provide a simple framework so that we can navigate from a traditional network architecture to a SASE architecture. And so, the first step is to connect, whether we're talking about connecting our remote sites or the individual users themselves. We're talking about securely connecting them, all of our users, right? So to the applications and to the data that they need. Second, once our users are connected, we need to control that user's access. But we also need to control all the threats that come along with that distributed workforce, since they are connecting from multiple places. That control mechanism should also be cloud delivered so that it's flexible enough to scale no matter how large or complex our environment becomes. And third, the third component is the SASE converge. So what we're doing is we're converging our networking and security functions so that we can actually leverage the cloud to help eliminate some of that complexity in our infrastructure rather than add to it. And so, this is allow us to scale up and down in really only the areas that we need to focus on and the areas that we need. So, that in addition, since we can scale up and down, will help us protect our existing investments. Now, before I pass the ball to Kevin and David, I want to quickly review two of the primary use cases from Cisco. These would be the secure remote worker and the secure edge. The secure remote worker focuses on securing connectivity for our distributed users. We want to make sure that we have the controls in place to make sure that those users are who they say they are and that they're using a healthy device when they're connecting to our infrastructure. Once we verify them and they're connected, we also want to make sure that they're getting the best performance that they can, no matter where they sit. And on the secure edge side, we're talking about securing the WAN edge to all of our different locations. Right? This way we can streamline connectivity between all of our different sites and make it easier to identify and resolve issues across ISPs or between cloud infrastructures, even up to the application itself. All right, so now I want to hand the ball over to Kevin and David so that we can take a more detailed look at all these SASE use cases. First up, we have Kevin Snoddy, who's going to be taking us further into the SASE secure remote worker. Kevin?
Great, thanks. So just one quick theme before we kind of start into this use cases. If there's questions, please raise your hands or put those in chats, and we'll be answering those. We have time at the end of the presentation to answer those questions. So for this particular use case, we broke it down into 3 different scenarios. And the reason why we broke this down into 3 different scenarios is we wanted to show the flexibility of the Cisco SASE architecture. And it's really building blocks, right, that we can build upon, and we use those different building blocks to meet your particular use cases and your business requirements inside of this use case. So, let's take a look before we dive down into this particular use case. Let's take a look at kind of the core components of the Cisco SASE architecture, and also the components that we're going to be using inside of this use case. So first up, we've got Duo. And what Duo is bringing to the table for us is we were using it for multi-factor authentication. We can also use it for device posturing and health, right? Understanding the posture and the overall device health is key for second factor authentication. Is that device jailbroken? If it is, we may not want it to be that second factor device, right? And then we can also use it for clientless remote access, and then for a single sign-on portal for our end users to access the different applications that they need all inside of one portal. Next up is Anyconnect. Many of us know Anyconnect as a VPN client, but we've expanded, or Cisco's expanded on that, and now we have the ability to add in agents inside of that So not only can we do remote access VPN, we can also run the umbrella agent and the secure endpoint agent inside of that Anyconnect client so that we can limit the number of agents that are running on the end machine. We can also do 802.1x and posturing over the VPN of that endpoint. Next, we have Umbrella, which gives us that DNS security, the secure web gateway, and then also the ability to do SSL proxy in the cloud so that we don't necessarily have to put beefy hardware on premise to be able to perform that SSL proxy. And then we also can layer on top of that remote browser isolation and DLP. Up next is Cisco Secure Endpoint. This is going to be our endpoint protection, and that has advanced malware protection, file reputation, traditional antivirus capabilities. It also brings in machine learning analytics, exploit prevention, and then script protection too, all in that endpoint protection. So, this use case, I think a lot of us have faced over the last 2 years, right? Flipping the workforce from, primarily on premise to that remote piece, right? So I'm working with a customer today that about 2 years ago, they had to send their call center and their imaging processing teams home to work remotely, right? So, overnight they kind of had to switch their infrastructure over to be able to support those remote workers. They've since made the decision that those two business units would no longer be coming back into the office, that they're going to transition them to all remote workers. So we're working through this exact scenario of the remote worker use cases for this particular customer and building it out to their two different use cases. They do have very different use cases between the call center and the image processing. But again, we're using the core components to be able to optimize that configuration for them. And employers are even starting to see employees asking to not return to the workforce, right? They want to be able to work from home. So it's something that's here and that we're going to have to adjust some of our network infrastructure to be able to fit. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the first scenario, which is the task worker with no VPN. So the kind of the requirements around this one was, we've got a remote worker, but they don't necessarily need a VPN into corporate assets. Everything that they need access to is either, a cloud application or is published publicly so they can gain access to it without having to have a remote access VPN. So if we look at kind of the core components, we've got Duo, Umbrella, and Secure Endpoint. From a hardware standpoint, we just got that end user's machine, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, and then we've got the agents all installed and running on that. Some of the enhancements that we can add to it, we could add an MDM. It's not necessarily a requirement for the Sassy architecture, but we could run MDM on top of that to be able to publish, different applications or documents to that endpoint. And then we've also got the ability for collaboration, any kind of collaboration tools or agents that can run on that remote machine. We would have the ability to securely connect that back into the infrastructure. If we look at how we're connecting, we're redirecting basically all the DNS traffic and the web traffic to the Cisco SASE cloud, right? So that would be Umbrella that is taking care of that, and then allowing us to overlay our policy and give us visibility into that traffic. And then all of our applications, whether they're cloud SASE applications or if they're publicly published private applications, we're getting access to those through Duo. And we're securing that by using MFA and then a single sign-on portal or the clientless remote access piece of Duo. And then any collaboration tools, we can use the collaboration tool set and this infrastructure to secure those pieces of it so that they have access to everything that they need. With the control, we have, the ability to secure all of the outbound user traffic. And then later on top of that, the remote browser isolation and DLP onto that machine using Umbrella. We've got Cisco Secure Endpoint running on that machine. So we have visibility, and we can also control from a threat prevention piece what's going on with that machine and have a great understanding of kind of what's out there and control from that. And then we've got the zero trust access for the user and device to different applications, right, with utilizing Duo for that. And the big piece of this, right, is it's simple and integrated deployment, right? So we've got an agent, whether it's running through the Anyconnect, all the agents are running through that, or if we install the agents individually. And then we've got a cloud delivered policy and visibility. So no matter where that endpoint's at, if it's at the corporate office, if it's at the user's house, if they're at Starbucks, we've got that cloud delivered policy and visibility that no matter where it's going to be at, they're going to have the same policy and the same protection. And then all of these tools are feeding up into a common platform of SecureX. So in the event that we have to do some threat research or take a look into maybe an event that we need to get more information about, all the logging and all the analytics are getting pushed up to SecureX, and it's a single platform for us to be able to go in and do those pieces. And the nice thing about SecureX is if you've already owned a Cisco security product, it's included as part of that licensing. So it just takes a single security product from Cisco, and you get access to SecureX. Augie was talking about one of the things that we lose when we start to send our workers home, right, is that visibility into the performance of the network or the infrastructure, right, and ensuring that both the user and our customers are getting the optimal performance out of everything. So that's where Thousand Eyes comes in, gives us that ability to have that visibility into how applications and the network infrastructure, whether it's private connections or cloud connections, VPNs, different applications. We can get that visibility and be able to see and understand the overall performance of the infrastructure. And again, if you have newer 9Ks with Advantage licensing on it, there may be the Thousand Eyes licensing included in that. So you may already have licensing today that you could take advantage of that. So if we take a look at the next scenario, again, we're showing that this is a building block, right? So we're going to add a piece to this. So what we've added now is we have basically the same scenario as the no VPN, but now we've got the requirement for a remote access VPN into the corporate infrastructure. There's a particular application or access that the end user needs, and now we're going to layer on that remote access VPN. So the big difference with this one is now Anyconnect moves into the core element because we are utilizing that for the VPN pieces of it. Again, MDM and collaboration are all enhancements that you can add into this. And the remote user's hardware is mainly their endpoint, right? Whatever, if that's a laptop or a desktop. So those pieces stay very similar to the first scenario. But we've added in that requirement for the remote access. So now we've got Anyconnect, and with Anyconnect, we can push down, from our Cisco firewalls, that policy, right? So gives us that ability to build out a policy in one place and give us the ability to push it down to our users. So if we have to make changes to that VPN policy, we can build that out in the firewall, push it down. So again, that scalability and management pieces of that. So we've got that split tunnel VPN that's allowing access into the corporate assets, and then we're pushing the rest of the DNS and web traffic that's not destined to the corporate network to the Cisco cloud security, in particular Umbrella. And then again, we're using the same components of Duo to be able to allow access to the applications, whether they're cloud-based or if they're corporate-based. And even if they're going across that VPN tunnel, we can still utilize all the features of Duo to secure that application and the endpoint itself. So again, too, on the control pieces, we still have the unified secure endpoint, and then we're securing all of the outbound user traffic across the tunnels, and then we also can layer on the remote browser isolation and DLP on that endpoint. So the control and the converge pieces are very similar between these two use cases. We've just added in the remote access. So on the converge, again, it's that simple integrated deployment, right? No one necessarily doesn't want to go in and manage every single creation and deployment of the VPN tunnel on every single endpoint, right? Being able to push that policy out from the firewalls down to the end users helps simplify that and scale those pieces out. Again, the cloud delivered policy and visibility with the Cisco SASE piece, and then we can still utilize Cisco SecureX and Thousand Eyes for that application visibility. So if we look at the kind of the last scenario here, this is going to be like your power user, and what's driving this one is now we have a need for more than just a laptop at that remote location, right? They may need a different, like a collaboration device, whether that's a phone or a video endpoint, even maybe like an access point or multiple computers. So what we've added into this one is some hardware that's going to be terminating the tunnels, whether that's a Meraki MX or a Cisco ISR router. So we're adding that piece into it. We're not going to be utilizing Anyconnect to build the secure tunnels. The other piece that we're doing is now we're going to actually build two different tunnels from that piece of hardware. We're going to build a tunnel to the corporate infrastructure, and then we're going to build a tunnel to the Cisco SASE cloud, so that everything is secure and encrypted, and we're basically hiding all the traffic inside of those tunnels, whether it's going to the Cisco cloud or to our core infrastructure, right? So core components are going to be Duo, Umbrella, Secure Endpoint, and now we've added in the Meraki MX or the ISR, and then we can still utilize Anyconnect here to be able to unify the agents of the Umbrella and the Secure Endpoint. And then, whatever that collaboration device is, and we've got from an end user, still that laptop, desktop, and then any UC unified communication hardware that might be required out there. And then also from kind of an enhancement, we can still use that MDM, right? If we want to publish applications or different documents out to that end user. Again, we've got the same kind of core components, right? So connecting, now we've got two tunnels, and both or all the traffic is being encrypted, leaving that device going out to the cloud, right? So we're hiding behind or hiding all of our traffic inside of those two tunnels from a visibility standpoint, and then we've got all of our web traffic and our DNS traffic is going across the SASE tunnel, and then any application or different components that are needed from the corporate environment is going across that VPN for the corporate users. Any application access is utilizing Duo, just like in the other scenarios. The control, we've got the unified threat management, right? So, and we're also protecting all of the traffic, whether it's DNS or, even HTTP traffic is going to be encrypted inside of those tunnels. So we're creating, or we're reducing the surface of visibility. And then we've got, securing all the outbound traffic, and we've got the secure endpoint running on the machine. And again, we got that simple integrated deployment. This one I've worked with a customer in the past, and we actually built what we called an office in a box. So basically we had all the components for this particular power user kind of in a pre-configured build of materials. Customer would stock those as a user would come on board. They were able to ship it out. It was all pre-configured. The user, brought it home, plugged it in, followed some very simple steps, and brought that system online. and was able to start working. So, that's the big key piece with the cloud delivered, right? We get that cloud delivered policy, the visibility, and the simplicity and the ease of scale from this. And then again, everything's feeding into the SecureX platform. And then we can still utilize Thousand Eyes because we can actually run the Thousand Eyes agents on the different devices, the ISR or the MX, to be able to get that visibility and run tests. So this next slide here, we put it in here for reference. What this slide is basically the entire use case, right, with all of the components in it and laid out just so that we could have it as a reference slide for you guys to take a look at as you're thinking about your particular use cases for the secure remote worker. One of the big things, right, that we were showing is how modular this use case is. And it's something that A&M can help you guys through this journey, understand the use cases that you guys have, and then help engineer and design that right scenario and solution for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and now hand it over to David, and he's going to start talking about the Secure Edge use case.
So for the second use case, we'll be looking at Sassy Secure Edge, what it is and the technologies that are utilized to achieve a secure edge. So today, the preferred method of connecting users to applications is shifting from dedicated MPLS legacy networks and connectivity to using internet connectivity. Cloud is a key part of driving this, and businesses are starting to rely heavily on internet connections to provide connectivity to critical applications. This could be SASE applications like Salesforce, Office 365, SAP, and WebEx. In addition, businesses are moving their on-prem applications to cloud services like AWS and Azure. The workforce is now residing in multiple locations, branches, and as Kevin mentioned, the remote user base is just simply growing. With more users, devices, and things consuming applications from multiple locations, the exposure to cyber threats starts to increase. User experiences become inconsistent, and overall, this results in a highly complex environment. As a result of this, internet connectivity becomes business critical within business strategies and innovations today. To help in these instances, IT departments are looking at and deploying SD-WAN. If you're not familiar with SD-WAN, we have the Gartner definition here on the left, but as a summary of SD-WAN's capabilities are simply what's listed over here on the right. So things like circuit load balancing, whether that circuit is an SLA, has a SLA attached to the circuit, like DIA or MPLS, or it's just commodity based, like cable, DSL, or cellular based circuits. Direct internet access, having the ability to do local breakout out of the internet destined traffic, Office 365 going out your local branch versus backhauling all the way back to your HQ or data center and going through your central security stack. Centralized management orchestration, and overall lower circuit costs. Because we start leveraging cheaper DIA circuits and commodity-based circuits like cable, TSL, and cellular as our primary or secondary connections, our networks versus MPLS-based networks. With lower circuit costs, we are seeing customers offset that savings from their primary circuits, and they're starting to add redundancy or high availability at locations that previously only had single connections. So secure SD-WAN should be simple and versatile while providing the following benefits: automation and cloud-based orchestration, the ability to automate changes for the entire organization, create templates, or maybe you want to bring online a brand new branch facility with zero-touch onboarding provisioning. Kind of that branch in a box where we're shipping devices straight from the manufacturer to location, and on-staff employees are bringing that site online for you. Dynamic performance routing, we touched a bit on this earlier, but have the capabilities to improve application performance by dynamic path selection. This allows you to steer traffic for your critical applications around network problems, which will improve the end user experience overall. And that's what we're looking for. Integrated security, services like web security, enterprise firewall, IPS, next-gen antivirus, DNS layer enforcement, those are security services that are integrated into an SD-WAN solution. and having the ability to create policy and controls around those security services is highly beneficial. We'll get into more of these use cases in the next couple slides or two for where these services can be applied and how they can help out to secure your locations. So Cisco has a couple Sd-Wan offerings. One that's very well known is Meraki. It's that simple, intuitive interface that a lot of customers are familiar with. It has speed to value. It's cost optimized hardware. It's just that full stack branch management for IT. The second option is Viptela, where it gives us that design flexibility. You can integrate services like SRST or your unified collaboration systems. You're able to do forward error correction, packet duplication, and it gives you the ability to do cloud on-ramping. It's that more advanced routing kind of platform. So SD-WAN with its direct internet access capability exposes us to our branches and remote locations and infrastructure as a service to some security risks. Network teams must balance security against both external and internal threats exposed by SD-WAN, with user experiences, costs, and complexity kept in mind. Looking at some of the external threats with direct cloud connectivity presents a greater level of exposure to malware and other internet-borne threats for branch infrastructure as a service and remote locations. Some examples of this might be unauthorized access, data breaches, malware infections, and phishing attacks. For our internal threats, public internet transport exposes your apps and databases to internal threats that move laterally between your branches. Data centers or infrastructure as a service, gaining untrusted access or are subject to compliance rules like PCI, HIPAA, and GDPR. To secure SD-WAN, 3 security approaches are typically considered. So with SD-WAN security, we can be delivered in 3 different ways. Traditional security at a regional hub or co-location facilities, your on-prem security at your branch locations, or all cloud-based security. As we've spoken with many customers, it's clear that security and SD-WAN go hand to hand, and that makes a lot of sense. Security becomes a top priority with SD-WAN deployments. And some of these examples are related to compliance, where customers that may have branch or remote locations that are taking credit card payments must be PCI compliant. Even though they encrypt and send all data over a VPN tunnel, for PCI compliance, all packets need to be subjected to a stateful firewall and an IPS solution. SD-WAN covers that. For guest access, guests are walking into your stores, branches, or hospitals, and they wanting to bring their own devices. Companies are now liable to provide a good enough content filtering solution these days to avoid any litigation. We can leverage on-box URL filtering to block or allow based on 82 different categories. In addition to guest access or other internet access, we can utilize direct internet access or direct cloud access. This is where all your traffic or SaaS application traffic from the branch go directly to the internet, leaving only your HQ or data center related traffic to traverse the VPN tunnel. This greatly lowers the necessary bandwidth needed at the HQ or data center. It can help reduce overall circuit costs. So let's look at a high-level use case for Secure Edge. With the flexibility of SD-WAN, we're able to leverage dynamic path selection on a lot of different variables, whether it's based on destination or performance of a particular link. When we look at steering traffic, we have a couple different scenarios listed here. At the top, we have traffic being steered over an umbrella tunnel to internet destined traffic, whether it is for SaaS applications or just simply surfing the web. We have different security services that the traffic can be secured by, whether it's DNS security with Umbrella or Firewall as a service or even CASB. We can also incorporate MFA like Duo to handle device posturing or simply continuous verification for our SaaS-based applications. And this kind of relates to your single sign-on for scenarios like Office 365, WebEx, Box, any other type of SaaS application that you may have. Going further down, we're able to steer traffic to other locations that are part of the SD-WAN mesh, whether it's on our private cloud or public clouds. With this traffic, we're able to perform analytics, we're able to monitor application SLAs, and continue to optimize performance to increase end user experience. To wrap all this up, we're able to integrate and observe all this information in platforms like SecureX and Thousand Eyes to better understand how how our secure edge is performing. We'll look at both of these solutions in more detail in a later scheduled session, as Kevin mentioned previously. But if you have any questions between now and then, don't hesitate to reach out to your A&M account manager for more information. This wraps up and kind of completes our use case for secure edge. I'll pass it back over to Augie.
Hey, thank you, David. So I wanted to recap some of the goals and the benefits that we're going to see when we start to use a SASE architecture. With SASE, when we converge our networking and security in the cloud, it's going to allow us to streamline how we securely connect all of our users and devices, no matter where they're connecting from. We're going to be able to optimize our infrastructure's performance by ensuring that all of our traffic uses the fastest and most reliable and also secure connection to the cloud, right? So one of the main goals here is to get that end-to-end visibility through and observability that we need to really identify and resolve the issues. And so, no matter whether they're happening on the internet or the network or the cloud infrastructure that we're connecting to, we need to determine where that's happening. And so SASE is going to help us adopt a zero trust strategy as well, so that we can verify that user and the health of their device, and not just for that initial login, but for every session that user makes. Ultimately, what it's going to help us do is become a whole lot more agile as a business, because it's going to allow us to change with the needs of the business. This way, we can scale up and down as we need to, and use the cloud to remove some of that complexity from our infrastructure. And so, one of the things that I think that we have all highlighted today, and we really want to stress, is that each organization is going to be completely different. Everyone has their own individual business requirements and goals, and so adopting a SASE architecture is really about determining what the right fit for your organization is. Kevin and David just kind of showed us how SASE can be applied throughout different scenarios depending on your use case. In reality, a lot of those use cases might not even apply to your organization. And I think that's where Cisco does a really good job in recognizing that every organization truly is unique. And so there can't be a one-size-fits-all approach to SASE. If you notice here on the left-hand side, you see that there's all the core SASE building blocks, right? And these are solutions that are already offered by Cisco. Many of you have already started to implement some of these, right? And so you could purchase these independently and roll each component out over time, right? As a way of securing your infrastructure. We also have the option of combining these product families with a variety of the multi-year enterprise agreements. And so this is so that you can get that financial predictability that comes with an EA, and it's going to allow you to manage your software across its entire lifecycle. However, Cisco has recently created a new single SKU offering specifically for SASE. So, what it does is it combines all of the building blocks of the architecture to create what's called a SASE bundle. And so the bundle makes it easier for you to combine all the components that you need and start using them right away. So you can simplify your deployments by combining these different components and streamlining your cloud security. The bundle also is going to guarantee that you protect yourself from any of the financial investments that you've already made, right? So if you've already purchased Duo or Umbrella, it's going to help you simplify the. It's actually going to be able to build on top of the products that you already own. So as I said, if you already own Duo or if you already own Umbrella, you could utilize the SASE bundle to complement that. So either through the use of an a la carte purchase or through the enterprise agreements, and now through the SASE bundles, we can see that there's really a lot of flexibility when it comes to adopting a SASE architecture. And so here at A&M, we understand that moving to a SASE model is going to be a gradual process for everybody, right? Things like your individual business goals, your current architecture, and your existing licensing all need to be considered. And so, whether you're looking to fully on-ramp to a cloud architecture, or you're looking just to solve some of those specific SASE use cases that we were reviewing, the good news is that A&M, we're here to help you navigate through that SASE journey, no matter where you're starting from. And so, all we ask is that you reach out to your account manager. We'd love to schedule some time with you one-on-one so that we can understand your individual needs and help you come to a solution that's going to help you in your organization. So, questions now.
Well, thanks guys for walking through that. If you have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. I've been monitoring. I haven't seen any come in along the way, but you guys were very thorough in the info, so that could be why you answer them along the way. But yeah, if anyone has questions out there, feel free to pop them in, and we'll get them answered. Yeah, and while people are potentially typing up questions, I'll add too. I mean, in general, right, as it relates to where you start in the SASE journey and how we can help, you know, the best place to start, you know, Augie mentioned the account manager. My perspective, best place to start is at a whiteboard, right? So that's typically how we get started in a lot of these conversations, just understanding the compliance requirements, where are your users, where are your applications, and figure out what makes the most sense from a security architecture perspective. And we can bring guys like Augie, Kevin, David, others to the table and get into the weeds. So would love to help you through that, but obviously either way, appreciate you guys joining today. I'm not seeing any questions pop up. If there are any, we'll give people another second here. Otherwise, we'll wrap. And hopefully you guys keep your eyes out for the survey. Let me see. I got looks like a couple questions here. What are the questions that you guys see when it comes to SD-WAN with Thousand Eyes? So I don't know who wants to take that one.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So with Thousand Eyes combined with SD-WAN, so traditional SD-WAN will give you visibility for the overlay tunnel that's created with the SD-WAN solution. With Thousand Eyes, you're able to actually get metrics and analytics on both the overlay and underlay and how it's performing. So there's huge benefits. We're happy to go through any type of demo with Thousand Eyes. There's a lot to that product. It's very robust in terms of showing performance and monitoring and analytics around how your circuits are performing. So yeah, but they do go hand in hand, and it's more than just SD-WAN underlays. You can look at BGP monitoring, you can look at performance from a client user experience. There's a lot that goes around with Thousand Eyes, and I think that's actually one of the topics we may be touching in a future session.
Cool. Yeah, and actually, if you guys are familiar with the AWS outage this week, it was pretty cool. If you go to the Thousand Eyes website, they have a lot of live updates when there are big outages, essentially, you know, where the outages are occurring with the cloud providers and so forth. It's pretty cool. I got another question. This one may be a good one for you, Kevin. When establishing a VPN to Umbrella, do I need any special licensing on my Meraki firewall?
So from the Meraki standpoint, I mean, obviously you would have to have Cisco Umbrella subscription for those pieces. But from the MX standpoint, you could use the base enterprise license that would allow you to build tunnels to the cloud. But our recommendation is to use the advanced security license because it gives you all the advanced security, so URL, advanced malware, and IPS IDS capabilities in that, and licenses those. And then it also gives you the ability to do an API integration with Umbrella. So you get some cross sharing of information between the two platforms to give you some more enhancements to the logging. So that would be our recommendation, is to utilize that license.
Got it. Okay, cool. So either would work. Some advantages with advanced. Okay, cool. All right. This is the last question I see in the list here. Maybe we'll get others. If you have them, feel free to pop them in. Augie, I don't want you to feel left out, so let's go with you in this one. I've seen that Gartner recommends a single vendor for your SASE solution. Do you really need to stick with one? What's the perspective there?
Yeah, sure. So, single vendor, I think the recommendation from Gartner there is because you're definitely getting the most financial benefit when you're sticking with a single vendor, right? And and again, there's that one neck to choke type of mentality where if there's issues or if there's product integration issues, you can go to a single vendor and have them resolve that, right? I think it's going to come back on complexity from a management and licensing standpoint, and probably even from a configuration standpoint. And I know that there's some specific products out there like SecureX that the more products that you own and are integrating information to, the better, right? That you're going to get a more complete picture of your infrastructure and the security breaches that happen when you have more products integrated. But if you're not completely sold on one component of a SASE offering from any vendor, right? I think that's kind of really the recommendation is to limit it, right? You want to pick and choose the one vendor that can give you the majority of what you're looking for, and then supplement wherever it suits your needs. And so I think that's kind of where that recommendation comes from.
Yeah, Augie, as the lone salesperson on the call, I would prefer, instead of one throat to choke, it was one hand to shake. So we can kind of work on the lingo there. That would be good. But I do think you know, it's very rare that any customer has a single security vendor in their, you know, for all the components involved in SASE, right? And so that is a good conversation that we have with a lot of customers, is to figure out, if you are to consolidate, where does it make the most sense? A lot of times it comes down to, where do you want your policy to live, where are users, where are applications? But again, those are great conversations we'd love to have at a whiteboard if and when the time allows it. Let me see if we have any other questions from the folks on the chat. No, it does not look like that. So we will give everyone 5 minutes back. Keep your eyes peeled on your inbox for the survey. So any of you that fill out the survey will have a raffle for a $150 Amazon gift card. So hopefully, in addition to sharing feedback out of the goodness of your heart, we'll also have a good chance to raffle there. So keep your eye out for that. The recording will be included as well. Thanks, guys, for the time. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.